Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 24 of the Journey Running Podcast, where the goal is to help you run farther, fuel smarter, and develop character through trail and ultra running. I'm your host, registered dietitian, coach, and ultra runner Stefan Schuster. As always, I'd like to use this moment as a reminder to folks, just to remind you that Journey Running is much more than just a podcast. It is also my running and nutrition coaching business. If you or anyone you know is looking for a coach or to work with a registered dietitian, you can reach out to me on my website, journeyruncoaching.com, or email me directly at journeyrunningsllc@gmail.com. I know it's kind of a weird time of year as I record this here on Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. It is shoulder season for many. A lot of us are in the western states, the Hard Rock, the Leadville, and so on. Lotteries, our 2026 goals and dreams are kind of up in the air at the moment, but soon enough we will all know exactly what we're training for, and if you need any help trying to run farther, fuel smarter, and develop character through your training, I would love to be here as your coach and dietitian to help you achieve your goals in 2026. Also, it would really mean the world to me if you could take a moment to like, rate, and subscribe to the show. Some of you might be aware already that you can leave comments on the show in apps like Spotify, for example, which is really cool. You know, these small actions, they might seem trivial to some, but the engagement that you provide the show, it does really go a long way in helping more eyes and ears get on the Journey Running Podcast, and yours truly, I really do appreciate it. So before we get into today's show, and I'm actually really excited for this episode today, we're having on Jordan Wasson, who is the owner of Helios Laser Therapy here in Superior, Colorado. Jordan's a really cool guy, and I really appreciate all of his wisdom that he was able to share on this episode on a unique, I think, recovery modality that can really help trail and ultra runners achieve their goals as they are, training training to achieve our goals in 2026. Before we get started, last week I did at the beginning of the show announce that I am in a partnership going forward with Buff. A lot of you guys are familiar with Buff. I'll actually if you're watching on YouTube, I'm sure you have seen this brand before, so I'm throwing up a Buff on the screen here. The reason I want to bring this up again on today's episode is because, in the last episode, I mentioned that I had collaborated with Buff to create some custom Journey Running buffs, and those, I'm very excited to say, have arrived. So if you're watching this episode on YouTube, you can look up on the screen right now. I'm going to show the custom buff I worked with Buff to create. So you can see the Journey Running logo on the top left here. If you live in Boulder, Colorado, or if you live in Colorado in general, hopefully you recognize the mountain that's in the background here. I made this buff Boulder themed / Journey Running themed. So that's Long's Peak on the top, and then right under Long's Peak you can see Green Mountain, and it says, which is the local peak here in Boulder. There's two local peaks here. So the first one is Green Mountain, and then Bear Peak is the other one you can see from town. And Bear Peak is actually on the bottom of the buff. Hopefully you can see it, but I also wanted to show that the Journey Running mission statement is on the buff, which is run farther, fuel smarter, develop character. And then you can again see the buff logo and the Journey Running logo on the bottom of the buff. So the reason I bring this up is because, just like I said in the last episode, I'm going to be giving a few of these away to friends, family, athletes that I'm coaching, but I also have reserved 10 of these to give out to listeners of the show. So, anyone who has liked, rated, and subscribed to the show on your favorite podcast platform to listen to episodes on, I'm not going to ask you for a screenshot of it, but, I'll just trust you. So if you reach out to me, journeyrunningsllc@gmail.com, if you shoot me an email or input a message onto my website, journeyruncoaching.com, if you leave me a message on the contact form there saying that you have listen to the show and perform those actions to help the podcast grow and expand, I really appreciate that, and I will make sure that one of these buffs is sent out to you. Just shoot me an email again at journeyrunningsllc@gmail.com with your name, your address, where you want that buff shipped to, and I will get that right on out to you. Really appreciate you taking the time to listen to the show. All right, without further ado, let's welcome Jordan Wasson to the show. All right, and really happy to have you on the show, Jordan. Super stoked for this episode today. It's going to be a very different one. I'm not sure how much of the Journey Running audience is super familiar with yourself and with laser therapy and what that exactly is and how that can help them as ultra runners. So I'm super excited to bring this, I would say, kind of a niche topic to the folks who are going to be listening in today. Yeah, I want to hand off the mic to you, though. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about yourself, what you do? Yeah, the mic is yours. Tell them any fun facts, where you're from, whatever you wanna, whatever input you want to give.
Sure. Thanks for having me on. My name is Jordan, everybody. I'm from right here in Superior, Colorado. Grew up here my whole life, just left here for a couple of years and the high school of San Diego, and then undergrad and grad school at University of Texas, Hook 'em Horns.
Oh, sorry, I got the Ohio
I
State flag
know.
behind me. Also, your last name is Wasson, right?
Yes, sir.
Just in case anybody's looking you up in the Colorado area for services.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Um, yeah, I've been back here for a few years, started working out in some exercise science and personal training over at Impact Sports in Superior, and kind of had this laser therapy business in the back of my head for a while. Inquired out to Helios, which is based out of San Diego, about how the business model works, how do I get trained, blah, 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 blah. And from there, everything just kind of meshed really well together, fell in line, and took a risk and opened up early in 2024.
Yeah.
It's been a blast helping so many patients with various, mainly soft tissue injuries, but we see a lot of post-op patients too. But yeah, even we get the same like injury over and over, but everyone's at a different stage in the rehab process. So some are like extremely acute, other people are somewhere in the middle. So it's always a fun game to figure out, how do we get the best results for each patient?
Yeah. What originally was it that piqued your interest in laser therapy?
Sure. So I had what's called thoracic outlet syndrome, and I had the vascular form. So what happens is I had impingement between the collarbone and the first rib here, and I actually threw a blood clot at some point. So I swam through high school and college, and they said it's a lot of just being up overhead. And from there, I had a couple operations to resect the first rib and then the scalene muscle in there just to decompress the area all fixed, but I had some nerve damage and some scar tissue buildup from that operation. And this laser actually fixed me in 2 sessions when I was visiting family in San Diego. So that was my first encounter with it. I was super stoked about it. And then from there, I was in grad school, and that's where I did a deeper dive into the physiology, but then also the engineering behind this specific machine. When it comes to laser therapy, there's also like a wide variety in terms of the machines and
Mhm.
their effectiveness. So I was actually pretty skeptical at first, but it grew
Yeah.
on me. I had an awesome experience with it firsthand, and then the science and literature was super fun to look into.
So is this something that like your doctor originally recommended you look into for your recovery, or how did you originally find out about it?
No, actually, my aunt just said, "Hey, Jordan, this thing's non-invasive. Why don't you go try it? It wouldn't hurt."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, whatever.
Interesting. And
It
from
can't
there, a
hurt."
passion was born.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. That reminds me of like when I was in middle school. I first heard of ultra running because my parents had a friend who gave me this book called Ultra Marathon Man, and I was like, why the fuck would I read a book? I didn't, I was in like ninth grade. I was like, why would I read? Next thing you know, I have to do a book report, and I'm like, well, I might as well read the running book. So I read Ultra Marathon Man, and for me, a passion inadvertently was born. I discovered ultra running, a whole new world I had never even heard about before that book. It's really interesting just how these kind of almost random turn of events can really alter the trajectory of our lives. That's really cool,
For
though.
sure.
What was it about Helios that specifically called out to you as opposed to other places? Because starting a business is a really big both emotional, time, financial investment. Why did you decide to you're a franchise with them, if I understand correctly from when we spoke,
We
or how
don't
does that
really
work?
call it, yeah, we don't really call it official franchise because it's still so small. We've got 8 locations total.
Mhm.
What they do help with is with the like back end stuff. So the website, the accounting, which I don't want to touch. I mean, I come from an exercise phys background, not marketing or business
Mhm.
background, so I needed help with all that. Um, but the reason I chose Helios is for the specific machine that they use. So after doing that dive into the physiology and the engineering, it was like, okay, this is the top machine in the market. I need to figure out where this thing is and who has access to it. Helios is the only publicly available of this machine. They're
Yeah.
normally limited to pro sports, NFL, NBA, or major hospital systems. So this is really the only machine around in the US. There's about 120 units kind of sprinkled throughout the country, mainly
Wow.
West Coast, Central, and there's kind of the gap between the Northwest and East Coast.
That's not a lot. And like you were saying, I
It's really
imagine a
not.
lot of these are being used on professional athletes. How exactly does like the laser therapy work if somebody's at home wondering how this can benefit them from, whatever it is they're trying to recover from?
Sure. So generally speaking, it just accelerates the soft tissue injury healing process. So it'll break up scar tissue, reduce inflammation, bring a lot of blood flow to the area. But most importantly, we're accelerating the soft tissue healing process at the cellular level. So think of anything soft tissue, muscle, tendon, ligament, nerve. Bones
Mhm.
would be the exception. They're just so dense that it blocks a lot of the absorption of the light there. But we see really decent success with your sprains, strains, post-op issues. We see a lot of nerve, a lot of back issues. Whether that's disc, stenosis, scoliosis, things like that. Sprains,
Interesting.
strains.
And so you said there's like different types of lasers. Do you use like a different one for different types of injuries, or how does like that work?
Sure. So we have one machine, it's called the Phoenix Therapy System. The wavelength is fixed. So we can't change that, but what we can change is the wattage or the power.
Mhm.
And we have a very specific protocol for like the specific injury or the tissue, if there's any nerve damage, etc. So that's how we modulate or make adjustments session to session.
Mhm.
When it comes to laser therapy in general, though, this is where the field gets so jumbled. It's insane. There's your class 4 laser therapy as an umbrella, and from under there you have dozens of machines. Some red light panels will even get thrown into there, even though they're not really a laser, they're a panel.
Mhm.
But yeah, my hope is that the field actually becomes much more precise with its terminology in the coming years to distinguish, okay, what's a cosmetic laser, what's a ablative laser used for cutting or things like they do in the military, and then what's a medical rehab laser.
Mhm.
And from under there, like how do we adjust the wavelengths and the wattage, and how do we dictate what's effective for what tissue, et cetera, et cetera.
Interesting. Yeah, you mentioned a lot of different types of injuries that a laser therapy can help with. Have you worked with like trail runners, ultra runners, or it doesn't have to be, trail and ultra. It could be marathon runners, just runners of any sort, 5K runners, to help them like recover from their ailments. What kind of, I guess, stories come to your mind? Is there a particular person that comes to your mind when, you think of success stories you've seen like at your practice?
Sure. So we see runners of all sorts, all distances, all types of trails. This fall, we had a little bit of an influx of those ultra guys, people coming off of the Leadville 100, which is nutty. I mean, talking about their stories are just wild. And the amount of prep they put into it. And then, like, you can even prep perfectly, but then the race day can go berserk, as you know.
Mhm.
But they're usually overused stuff. So post-hip tendonitis or Achilles tendonitis issues, some knees here and there. So it's
Mhm.
kind of the same patterns over and over, but just the damage will dictate the number of sessions they usually need.
Mhm.
Um, for the most part, we're able to get on top of it in 2 to 5 sessions. There's a couple stubborn cases. We have a couple marathon girls who are in right now, and they're training through. You might know the race. It's next couple weeks.
Is it around here in Colorado or
It's in LA, I think.
LA?
Yeah. Nah, I don't know. Anyways, they're hitting taper in a week about, but they're just trying to push through that last block of training and they're
Mhm.
not able to rest as much. So that's where it's harder for us to get on top of an injury. But this is actually something that allows them to just finish the block of training rather than just like go down to the dumps and not be able to train at all.
Yeah.
And
And
my hope is as their volume comes down a little bit, that we can actually get over the hump on that injury in time for them to race well.
interesting. So you do recommend that people are like more in a resting state while they're recovering when they're, getting treated?
Overall, there's no real downtime. Ideally, you're not going and like training like crazy within the next 24 hours post treatment.
Mhm.
And it's all like the volume and the intensity dictates and your training background, right?
Mhm.
So let's say I go from who runs 10 to 15 miles a week. I'm trying to get on top of a post-it tendonitis, right? But next week I'm going to go train 20 miles. The
Mhm.
odds of me actually getting on top of that post-it tendonitis are going to be pretty slim.
Mhm.
Well, if we take one of these marathon people who are training 70, 80 miles a week and they're dropping down to 40, odds are really high that we're going to be able to get on top of it.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, and I thought it was cool. You were showing me you were really generous with your time. You gave me a whole tour of your facility. Although I haven't been treated myself, you did show me the red light, and I thought it was kind of crazy how the second it's on you, it's very warm. You can tell that it does a really good job bringing like blood flow to the area that it's trying to help you heal from. Yeah. So if somebody is in the Colorado area, do you want to throw your address out there? And, one of the things I'm wondering is, could you like walk people what the recession would look like? Because, so we actually got connected just to give anyone listening a little more context, we got connected because you had a social media guy who reached out, and I guess
Yep.
they saw that I was an athlete on just my personal page, and they asked if I was recovering from an injury and if I was interested in laser therapy. And I had never even thought about laser therapy as an option before for recovery. And so I said, well, I'm not recovering from something right now, but I'd love to learn more about the subject, which is how we originally got connected. And you gave me a whole tour and everything. I'm wondering, like, could you walk people through what a session would look like if they were going to come in and see you, and like, where exactly are you located if somebody's listening to this in the Colorado area and, wants to meet you and, get services from you?
Yeah. So we're just outside of Boulder right now in Superior, Colorado. We're within what's called the Sports Stable, which is a huge sports complex. We actually have visions to add another location or two in the coming year-ish. The goal right now is just to max out the numbers at this location, and then we'll think about adding probably Boulder next, and then somewhere down towards Cherry Creek or Denver
Mhm.
would be coming. Um, but yeah, we're just right along the main street there. It's all under construction and slowly coming underway. Sports Stable looks great, but all the apartments and the retail spaces are slow to fill in. It'll get there at some point, but I'm excited to have some food. We need some more food around here. Oh my gosh.
Well, you got the coffee shop though.
We do. That's true. I'm not a big coffee guy, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
But yeah, when someone new comes on in, we reserve a 45-minute new patient time slot. We usually take the first 10 to 15 minutes to chat through everything, make sure I'm filled in on the injury. We get everybody from having the full MRI report, which helps me. And we also get people who just go, my shoulder hurts, help.
Mhm.
So it doesn't really matter. We don't need the formal diagnosis, although it can help. I'm not in a position to give a formal diagnosis, but getting that from your MD, ortho, or PT, that
Mhm.
does help. And then from there, we'll do a 26 to 28-minute laser therapy session. Decent amount of time on the injury. Most laser therapy is actually about 3 to 10 minutes. So we spend a lot more time on the injury. And that 30 minutes will cover your typical body part or joint. So say like a shoulder, a knee, a hip, a low back, for example. I actually can't spread more than about 2 body parts in a session, just because then we start spreading your body in too many different directions. I'd
Mhm.
rather send all healing to a specific area and then move on to the next once we get on top of it.
One topic I wanted to talk to you about, because I thought it was really interesting when we met, was you were talking about the what's the word I'm looking for, the relationship between laser therapy and essentially gut health and individuals who are working through any sort of GI distress. Could you talk a little bit more about like how laser therapy could help people who are experiencing some of those kind of ailments as well? Because I thought that was super fascinating point that you brought up when we met.
Sure. So, one point I have to bring up here is that the research on this is going to be coming in the next 3 to 5 years. When it comes to laser therapy and soft tissue injuries, it's been very well studied, very well backed. But when it comes to some of these, I call it off conditions, but it's not really an off condition. But
Mhm.
say like GI health or concussions or Alzheimer's, there's
Mhm.
a emerging literature coming. So that'll be really interesting to see in terms of like the precise mechanisms that'll be coming into play. But for now, you can just generally think of it as most of these GI issues are inflammatory issues in nature,
Mhm.
and the laser is what helping to drive a whole healing process and fleshing out the bad type of inflammation. From my experience, the GI is actually pretty interesting,
Mhm.
just because you also have to look at so many other factors, genetics, nutrition, doing things like the Viome gut study can be helpful to kind of figure out what's going on.
Mhm.
So overall, I would just think of it as an inflammatory issue in nature, and the laser helps with the inflammatory issue. And
Yeah.
it's also one of the few modalities that can penetrate deep enough to actually address those tissues. So this laser can go up to 6 to 7 inches deep, which is why we're able to get there. As opposed to some other panels, for example, they can only go about a half an inch deep into the tissues. So it's not really relevant for anything, you know, deep into the gut or the kidneys, et cetera, et cetera.
Gotcha. And you mentioned it can help with concussions as well. So
Yes, sir.
it is safe to use that like right on your. I imagine you'd put it right next to your head, the laser.
Yeah, the only thing we are not clear to go over are the eyeballs. Otherwise, I would have fixed my eyes by now because I want to get rid of my contacts. That's another type of laser, right? LASIK. But yeah, we're FDA cleared to go through everything else. What's interesting about the concussions is that sometimes they'll feel worse or have some brain fog
Hmm.
the first few sessions before they get over the hump and start to feel better.
That's super
Whereas,
interesting.
whereas like a muscle or tendon issue, they usually feel better and better as we go.
That's
There's no
fascinating. There's like all
down.
these. There's like all these like unique modalities to recover from something like a concussion that I wasn't aware of like a year ago. Like laser therapy. One of my friends had a ski accident last year, and he was prescribed to take creatine. Actually, yeah, I'm a dietitian. I'm aware that it's helpful for, brain health overall. But I thought that it was pretty cool that his doctor had actually prescribed that he take. I think it was like is it milligrams or 5 grams, whatever the standard
Grams
creatine,
probably.
yeah, of creatine doses 4 times a day. And I just thought that was really fascinating. Yeah.
I'm super excited for like a lot of fields and disciplines to come like mesh together at some point because I feel like right now a lot of people have like niches or they're very, did a deep dive so like understand the laser therapy really well, but I don't understand nutrition, for example.
Hmm.
And we have MDs, for example, who are like generalists at everything but don't understand nutrition super duper well, or they don't understand shockwave super duper well, or they don't understand laser super duper well. So I'd love to see some of these kind of clinics I think are starting to develop where we have multiple people from multiple disciplines coming together, putting their heads together to come up with a treatment plan for various patients. And
Yeah.
that really excites me.
That is really cool. Even as like I'm a dietitian and I do running coaching, but I'm like super clear with athletes that I'm not your physical therapist. I can give you
Yep.
exercises to try and prevent certain injuries just based off of my own experience. But like I'm not a PT and I'm not a doctor. And, no matter how much there's still going to be other fields that like you don't know everything about. And I think it's super important as providers that like we're very upfront about that with the people that we're working with. Um, what are like, you've mentioned a few times like subjects that you're really looking forward to seeing research develop on. Like, what's your like top maybe 2 or 3 subjects you're looking forward to seeing more research be developed on when it comes to like laser therapy and healing?
I would like to see research with laser therapy and PRP or stem cell and the combination.
Mm.
So right now we've had to separate the two because basically the way that MDs or people who are administering PRP, for example, say is like we have to do this alone. And if there's anything that factored into it and you had a negative experience with the PRP, it was probably because of the other thing. But we've seen some other clinics. You may have heard of him, Kobayas, for example, over at Cornerstone.
I'm
He
not
works
sure
with
if
a
I
lot of the runner guys.
I'm not sure if I know him.
Okay, Dr. Kobayas, anyways. But he does shockwave and PRP, and he's done what's actually called like a sandwich, where they'll shockwave, PRP, shockwave, and then shockwave again a couple of days later. And he's getting some amplified results from that. Right now, we're not clear to do anything like that, but I'd love to see if some of these therapies can be stacked or combined to have an even more beneficial effect.
Mhm.
And then I have an interest in some of the autoimmune issues too. I think that'd be really cool to dive into.
Yeah, I mean, from being a dietitian, I'm biased, and that is, the one area I would love to hear more and more about,
Yeah.
because then I can, guide the people that I'm working with, to just help them recover as best as possible when they're dealing with any sort of injury. Yeah.
And those are usually our most interesting cases anyways. I mean, if you give me an Achilles tendonitis, it's really easy for us. Like, just give me 2 to 4 sessions, let me laser it. You'll probably be in and out of here. But when people come in with like concussions or autoimmune issues, it's like, okay, we're gonna have to think outside the box a little bit here. I need to like pair with some other people who are very specific in their fields for
Mhm.
nutrition, all the other stuff. And we're probably gonna have to alter our protocol to like see what results the best. But it's this like trial error. But if we can have more research behind it to say like, oh, these are the specific organs we need to hit, this is part of the brainstem we need to hit, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
That would be
That's
really interesting to see.
It is. I imagine like when you work with ultra runners, you do hopefully you see in like the ultra running population that people are recovering somewhat quickly, because, I like to think that like trail running is a big part of a lot of people's lives in this sport. Like if you're training for 100 milers, it's so time consuming that if
Oh
something
yeah.
does come up, you are like on top of your recovery as much as you possibly can be, whether it's stretching, PT, or strength work, or laser therapy, or like nutrition, sleep, creatine, whatever it is. Like people are on top, I feel like, of making sure that they can get back to doing what they love as quickly as possible. And that's super important. One thing I think that's really cool about you is that, you started your business out of an active passion for this subject, and, you have your backstory as to like why you got really into and involved with this subject. I, like you, I followed my passion. I went back to school after being in outside sales for a few years to study nutrition, become a dietitian, work with athletes. I'm still trying my best to make that work out full time. I'm interested in hearing more about like how it's going, being a business owner, what it was like getting started, stuff like that. I imagine that somebody listening to this episode might be wondering if they are a PT, a chiropractor in your industry, like if they want to start their own practice, like what does that look like? And what's the most fun part about it? What's the hardest part about it? Kind of a loaded question there.
Oh my gosh. What's funny is that recently I feel like I've been getting lost in the busyness of everything, absolutely grinding out of my mind, um, and forgetting like how far we've come. It's like when I look back to March of 2024, it was just two patients at first, one of which was my mom. So we've come such a long ways, which is really gratifying. And there's still so much room to expand. I mean, we can still even double our volume, which is insane to me, and just add other locations, which would be really cool. But I think, yeah, the hardest part was just like realizing how much time this would take and just the amount of things you can continually learn. I had no idea what I was really getting myself into. I thought it was just like, oh, we open, I'll use some of our marketing resources, blah, blah, blah. They'll run some Google ads, we'll just blow up. It's been way more intense than I'd ever thought. But it's really gratifying to learn so many different things. And more recently, I've actually just gotten away from some of the exercise phys stuff, some of the laser therapy stuff. I still need to like be updated on that stuff for obvious reasons. But I've been learning so much about business, so much about marketing, so much about sales. So I feel like I'm accumulating a lot of just experience by doing. And I've had a decent amount of people, you may even have seen this too, who are like, oh, you got to go back to school, for a business degree, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes I think that's legit. Like, there's probably a reason behind that. But at the same time, I'm learning so much by doing and by going.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't trade it, honestly. Could it be more efficient to just have the skills up front and just go for it? Yes. But I've just been doing so much trial and error and learning by doing. It's been really gratifying to say, like, okay, this doesn't work, but it doesn't work because of that reason.
Mhm.
But this will work a little bit better for this reason. So it's been a whole learning experience. It's been a wild ride, but we're in a place now where, we broke even in last fall. So it's just kind of like building volume, which I think is actually not too difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Congrats. That's a
we
really
have
big accomplishment.
programs and plans. Yeah, thank you.
Especially like starting with, two clients in that first month. That's got to be really overwhelming. Like when you first start out, you have the location, you have the overhead, you have the equipment, and it's time to get started. And now it's like, well, how do we get people here? And what a lot of folks don't see, even like putting out this podcast, it takes time to use the software to edit, to make clips, to put on social media, to create the cover art for like the episode that's going to go on Instagram that you're going to post, for example. There's a lot that goes into it. And then, maybe the podcast is definitely part of like marketing for me. It's a way to get my name out there, to remind people I do like coaching and nutrition services. But like people don't really realize like a lot of the actions that you take as a business owner don't have like a direct correlation with, quote unquote sales per se. And yeah, just takes a lot of time and a lot more creativity, I think, than people realize.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you end up like finding your first few clients and actually growing and, get the ball rolling for your practice?
I grabbed my phone right here and I started texting people.
Just word of
It
mouth,
was
essentially.
Yeah, it was, I don't know why I think of it as potentially like humiliating, but it was just weird to just like go text existing connections I had in this area. And I was like, hey, I started this business. You want to come on over for free? I'll do it for free, please. Just come on in.
Yeah, I think people have a lot of respect, when somebody like tries to chase their dreams and, puts like all their marbles into one bucket. I don't know. I have a lot of respect for people who do that. Like I work part-time as a dietitian at like a long-term care facility. Yesterday these two kids had like a moving company. They just like knocked on the door. They had to be like 16 or 18 years old or something. And I was like, man, like I don't need your services, but I have so much respect for the fact that like you're knocking on doors, you're cold calling, you're putting in the effort. Like, when you go out on a limb like that to, chase your dreams, I think people have a lot of respect for that. So, um, uh, I'd like to think that it wasn't as like maybe humiliating. I don't know if that's the right
It's
word,
not,
but
I
like
don't think it's the right
as it
word, but
sounds like, yeah. But
it's very humbling in a way. Uh, But I love it how it's been spreading. It's mainly word of mouth. That's like 80% of our business. So it
that's
takes a
pretty
little
cool.
time to get rolling, but that's how I prefer it. Let the results dictate the success of the business, really.
Yeah.
People are happy, they'll come back and refer other people in. If they're not happy, then your business will just crumble and die. So
Fair enough. I guess, yeah. I mean, reviews are important too.
they are.
What advice would you give to, somebody who has an entrepreneurial spirit who's trying to start like their own business, whether it's a PT, chiropractor, like somewhere in like the health industry like you and I are? Or specifically, you have a physical location, whereas I don't. I'm interested in also hearing like how that, your advice might differ for somebody in that scenario.
Sure. First, I respect you because the reason you're likely in this industry and what you're doing is because you care about others and you just want to help. So I really respect that. What's funny is that I feel like so many of us in kind of the medical field, for example, or exercise phys or strength and conditioning, we learn that side of things really well, but nothing about how to do a business. Right. So what I would say is look for a mentor or someone who's done what want to do and try to get mentored by them. In my experience, people have been very open and kind in sharing their time and energy and resources. Even just chatting over a lunch and saying like, "Hey, I was in the exact same spot as you were 20 years ago, but this is what I did. This is what worked best. What problems are you running into? Here's how you could go about addressing those, et cetera, et cetera."
Hmm.
Those people, they're out there. They are.
Yeah,
They might take a little while to find them, but they're out there. They'll help you.
that's good advice. There's a local race director who I have had as a resource for the last few years. I'll never forget sitting down with him at lunch. Oh gosh, this was like 4 years ago now. And at first he told me that going to school would be harder than starting a business. And uh, and then I met with him more recently, and he was like, "Oh yeah, starting a business is like the hardest thing you're ever gonna do." And I was like,
For sure.
thanks, man. You tell me like 4 years down the road
Oh
of
yeah.
like trying to like figure out how to make this all work, get the credentialing, yada yada. So it's kind of funny. But yeah, that's really good advice. Yeah, I want to make sure that, I commend you. I feel like you are just a super genuine person from the second I met you. I thought it was really nice of you to take the time that you took to give me a tour of Helios and show me around and talk to me about like how laser therapy works. I really hope that people who are listening to this episode are able to come away with useful information for them. They might not be injured this second, but they might be as ultra runners like I'll put it this way. I used to take martial arts when I was in like high school and I was injured once and my instructor at the time, he looked at me and he said, I know you're upset about this, but like, this is just part of being an athlete. Like, if you want to be an athlete, there's going to be highs and there's going to be lows. And like, most likely there's going to be injuries along the way. People are going to, need this service at some point, like in their athletic career, very likely. But anyways, sorry, getting back to what I was saying about you, I really appreciate your kindness and your generosity with your time and ability to like teach and take the time to do that. I really appreciate that. I think that's really cool of you.
You're
You
welcome.
know, I want to make sure that we're respectful of your time today because I think we both have a few meetings coming up here soon, but I want to make sure that you get the last word in today. Where can people find you? What message do you want to leave people off with? Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the Journey Running podcast today, too.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. You can find us at helioslasertherapy.com, or you can just Google Laser Therapy Superior or Boulder, and we'll pop up one of the first two there. And we do all online booking, and then you can find all the info you should need online in terms of research and anecdotal reports and reviews and blah, 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 blah. If you have questions, we do have a main line you can also text or call to talk with one of us, just some more about your condition specifically and what you're dealing with. Again, every new patient's a 45-minute new patient appointment. Almost everyone these days is a word of mouth referral. So we actually do $30 off your first session. So
Cool.
we're pretty generous with the discounts as well. Let's see. You can find us on social media as well. It's Helios Laser Therapy. We actually just cut our Colorado account just to merge and consolidate our efforts.
Mhm.
So don't look for the Helios Laser Therapy Colorado account anymore. It's just Helios Laser Therapy. I think that's about it. But yeah, if you or a friend or family member is dealing with an injury, something that's nagging or acute or long term, we would love to have you guys in. You're always welcome to just schedule that initial session and we could just chat through, even if you don't want to do the laser. I'm happy to just spread the word. And I ultimately want to be on the same page as the patient as well. I want to make sure that the patient is totally on board and that they're making a well-informed decision overall. So at no point are we ever shoving it on people. We want to have the patient be on board, bought in, and decide that, hey, this is something that could be really valuable in my rehab process.
Well said. All right, Jordan Wasson, everyone, thank you so much for being on the show, man. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for taking your valuable time to listen to today's episode. I hope you were able to come away with valuable information that can help you run farther, feel smarter, and develop character through trail and ultra running. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the show. I'd really appreciate it, as it does really help us grow and expand. Also, if you or anyone you know is looking for a registered dietitian or coach to help you crush your trail running goals in 2026, look no further. You can reach out to me at journeyruncoaching.com or journeyrunningllc@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening to the show, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.